Before I begin, I encourage you to watch my previous YouTube video, Dune Rehabilitation or Dune Suffocation. It provides the background and context for this documentary and will help you better understand where Part 2 is headed. If you haven't seen it yet, I recommend taking a few minutes to watch it first, as many of the issues covered in this follow-up build directly on the findings and concerns raised in the original documentary. There are places along our coastline that have existed for centuries. They have endured cyclones, king tides, droughts, floods, and relentless storms. They shift with the seasons, they move with the wind, they protect the land behind them. They are alive. This is the story of one of those dunes, and how in less than a few years it became a symbol of what can happen when intervention replaces understanding. 8 months. 8 months ago, I released a documentary-style YouTube piece titled Dune Suffocation. It wasn't created for views. It wasn't designed to stir outrage for the sake of it. It was a warning. A warning that a living coastal ecosystem had been interfered with unnecessarily. A warning that a natural dune, one that had survived decades of storms, tides, and seasonal change without significant human intervention, was being buried beneath tons of garden refuse and materials in the name of rehabilitation. A warning that what was being called environmental restoration looked far more like environmental destruction. The response was not immediate, but it came after some persuasion. The footage reached the very people who had authorized the project. In turn, 2 officials from the relevant Nature Conservation Department visited the site to investigate what had been exposed. What they found was deeply concerning. It was acknowledged that the dune had suffered no significant damage from either human activity or natural processes that warranted such extensive intervention in the first place. It was acknowledged that there had been no proper monitoring or control over exactly what material was being dumped onto the dune throughout the project. Today, the consequences of that failure are growing in plain sight. Alien vegetation has taken hold across large sections of the dune, smothering indigenous species that evolved to survive in this fragile coastal environment. One question repeatedly surfaced during those discussions: why was such a vast natural dune system disturbed simply to address sand blowing across approximately 20 meters of roadway? It is a question that to this day remains unanswered. The documentary also reached dune rehabilitation specialists both locally and internationally. Their opinion was remarkably consistent. This project should never have been approved. This project should never have been carried out in the manner that it was. And once the damage became apparent, corrective action should have begun immediately. Instead, silence. For months I remained in contact with those responsible for making the decisions necessary to reverse the damage and restore the dune to its natural state. I continued asking questions. I continued requesting updates. Eventually the responses stopped. I was informed that departmental heads would meet, discuss the issue, and get back to me. That conversation happened in January 2026. We are now approaching the end of July 2026. Nothing. No update. No accountability. No action. Meanwhile, nature has continued delivering its own report card. It is impossible to ignore. The consequences are unfolding before every one of us. For local surfers, another winter has passed with little to no meaningful sandbank formation. Even the reliable summer banks that once shaped this stretch of coastline have become increasingly rare. The dune itself is slowly disappearing beneath invasive alien vegetation, choking out the very ecosystem it was supposedly being rehabilitated to protect. Areas that were once difficult to access have become open corridors, attracting homeless camps, many occupied by people struggling with addiction. Human waste, litter, illegal dumping, makeshift shelters. What was once a functioning coastal buffer has become something resembling a post-apocalyptic landscape. This is no longer a debate about theory. This is no longer about environmental modeling. This is no longer about what might happen. The evidence is standing in front of us. A dune is dying, not because nature failed, because people did. Environmental decisions carry enormous responsibility. When those decisions prove to be wrong, leadership demands something simple. Own the mistake. Correct it. Learn from it. Instead, what we continue to witness is hesitation, endless discussions, departmental meetings, and bureaucratic paralysis while the environment continues to deteriorate. At what point does enough evidence become enough? How much further must this ecosystem decline before someone accepts responsibility? How many more meetings need to be held while the dune continues to suffocate? The irony is difficult to ignore. A project intended to rehabilitate a dune has instead accelerated its decline. A project intended to protect the environment has created an ecological problem that grows larger with every passing season. The solution is no longer complicated. It requires courage. It requires honesty. And above all, it requires accountability. Undo what was done. Restore the dune using sound environmental science. Remove the invasive material. Remove those using the dune as their personal real estate. Re-establish the indigenous ecosystem. Allow nature to breathe again. Because the longer this is ignored, the harder and more expensive it becomes to reverse. History has a way of remembering environmental failures. It also remembers those who had the opportunity to act and chose not to. The dune is not asking for another meeting. It is asking for someone to finally do the right. Perhaps one day there will be another report, another site inspection, another committee meeting, another promise that the matter is being reviewed. But while paperwork accumulates, the dune continues to disappear. Nature doesn't wait for agendas to be approved. It doesn't pause while departments debate liability. It doesn't care about budgets, politics, or reputations. Every day that passes is another day the damage deepens. So perhaps the real questions are no longer about the dune itself. They're about us. Who approved a project that many now believe should never have happened? Who signed off on disturbing an ecosystem that had survived perfectly well on its own? Why was there no effective monitoring of what was introduced onto the dune? Why have invasive species been allowed to establish themselves unchecked? Why, after months of questions and growing evidence, has meaningful action still not been taken? And perhaps the most uncomfortable question of all. If this had happened in a protected reserve, a national park, or on an exclusive beachfront, would we still be waiting? Or would the machinery already be on site, undoing the damage? Perhaps the answers are simple. Perhaps admitting a mistake is politically inconvenient. Perhaps reversing the project comes with financial implications. Perhaps nobody wants to be remembered as the person who approved it. Or perhaps everyone is simply hoping that enough time passes for people to stop asking questions. But nature has a remarkable memory. Every season records our decisions. Every storm reveals them. Every shifting grain of sand tells a story that no report can rewrite. History will eventually deliver its own verdict, not through opinion, not through politics, but through what future generations inherit. Will they inherit a thriving coastal ecosystem, or a monument to bureaucratic indecision? Will they remember this as a community that had the courage to correct a mistake, or as one that watched a living dune slowly suffocate while waiting for permission to save it? The evidence is no longer hidden. The questions have already been asked. The science deserves to be heard. The community deserves honest answers. And the dune deserves far better than silence. Because in the end, this was never just about sand. It was about stewardship. It was about accountability. It was about whether we protect nature or simply manage its decline. The next move belongs to those entrusted with that responsibility. History is watching, the community is watching, and the dune is still waiting to breathe.